I'm tired.
You said it again, sister.
Shocking, I know, but really, most of what I do is work, and have little time to just relax. I usually focus on watching intellectually stimulating media and series that cater to my very specific tastes and interests, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood for that. I might just want something that responds to the monkey brain part of me. It's rare, but it happens. So as I was reading Vagabond one day, my partner recommended that I try watching a samurai anime, one that was co-produced by Americans, no less. And I thought, why not? What kind of shitstorm will this be?
You don't deserve this big Toblerone.
But this samurai series is a little different, because this one's got Samuel L. Jackson in it.
Does Samuel L. Jackson like anime?
Yes, I do. Hentai too.
Roll intro. Wait a second, you might have just said. Did I just say Samuel L. Jackson and anime in the same sentence? What's up with that? Well, aside from that beauty of a clip, Jackson let the world know about his weeaboo side back in 2007 when Afro Samurai premiered on Spike TV, aka the first network for men.
Manda.
Get that nasty shit out of my face!
It was a 5-episode miniseries that combined a lot of what Jackson and the series creator Okazaki Takashi loved. Samurai stories, over-the-top action, hip-hop, soul music, blaxploitation films, and much more. You'll have to take my partner's word for this, but this show was a big deal at the time. In the mid-2000s, anime was still a bit niche in America. You had Pokemon, of course, and the Ghibli films, and Toonami and 4Kids, but the average American probably wouldn't go out of their way to watch one that isn't mainstream. So not only was Jackson starring in one, but he was also involved in its creation. And later on, it would get a film sequel, 2 video games, and even an attempt at a live-action movie. Keyword being attempt. Today, interest in the series has mostly died down, but was it warranted? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Now let's start with, as usual, the plot. Story time. The series focuses on the titular Afro, a black man living in a sort of feudalistic but sort of futuristic Japan. Gintama instantly comes to mind, but forget about all that world-building stuff, because right now there is one thing on Afro's mind: revenge. As a kid, he saw his father get killed in a duel with a gunslinger named Justice. His father was the owner of the number 1 headband, which supposedly grants the owner godlike powers. Now that Justice has it, he plans on ruling the world. But he takes pity on Afro and lets him keep the number 2 headband, telling Afro to challenge him when he's older. Sounds nice, but it's basically putting a bullseye on Afro's head. You see, only the owner of the number 2 headband can challenge the number 1. But every living being on the planet can challenge the number 2.
Well, that sucks.
So after getting his ass kicked and the headband taken by a few bandits because, well, he's a kid, Afro was adopted by a sword master. There, he is raised alongside many other orphans and trains to become a samurai. It's like L, but samurai edition. Once he reclaims the number 2 headband, he embarks on a bloody, and I mean bloody, quest for vengeance. In the process, he takes on assassins, a group of monks intending to become immortal, and an old friend who's also seeking revenge. Revenge. Brain short-circuiting.
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
It's as straightforward a revenge story as you can get. But the reason why Afro Samurai sticks out comes down to 2 things: how stylized it is and how the series came to be. Let's have a history lesson. Afro Samurai started as a doujinshi all the way back in November of 1998, back when I was a wee child. As a young man, Okazaki was a big fan of African American music and culture and would often doodle black characters on Kleenex boxes. What did he do with those Kleenex boxes? And once he threw samurai into the mix, the character of Afro was born. The doujin was released over 4 years and received a decent following, but it wasn't until an acquaintance started making figures of the characters that interest in the series picked up. Eric Calderon, an American producer, came across one of those figures while at Studio Gonzo and met with Okazaki to develop a pilot. It gets a little confusing as to what happens next, so here are 2 versions of it. The first, according to Calderon, is that after the pilot was made, Jackson saw a copy of it on someone's desk and decided to take it home.
The person said, "No, you can't have that." And he said, "Yeah, right, I can't have that." And he took it anyway.
It sounds like a very Jackson thing to do, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. The other story is that Okazaki managed to get in touch with Jackson and send him a copy of the pilot. Yeah, that's not as exciting, but regardless, Jackson was immediately drawn to the project and he wanted to play Afro. Now, there's no way they're saying no to Samuel L. Jackson, so they said, of course you can! Jackson wasn't here just for the paycheck, however. He became an executive producer and a creative collaborator. He was attending story conferences, character discussions, and helping to make the series into something a little more unique. This helped the show to get a large budget, many well-known American voice actors, and a score from the Wu-Tang Clan's The RZA. So yeah, you can tell why a lot of Americans decided to tune in every week. And when I mentioned American voice actors, you should know that there is no Japanese version of this series out there. There's a French version and a German version, but nothing in Japanese. It even aired on Japanese TV with Japanese subtitles. But then again, would you really want to dub Sam Jackson? Probably not. If there is one word I would use to describe Afro Samurai, it would be swood. Fuck is swood? Like swoody swoody?
You wanna hit that booty?
Just kidding, I mean it would be stylish. Everything from the character designs to the animation to the music feels unique, and Studio Gonzo does a great job in bringing Okazaki's illustrations to life. You know them through series like Hellsing and Gankuso, and Afro Samurai is a great example of what they can accomplish. The animation is fluid with lots of great detail, which is especially impressive given how detailed these designs can be. The lip syncing isn't always on point, but considering the animators were working with an English track, they did a decent job. And the dark color scheme helps drive home the show's dark and foreboding mood. The fight scenes are also well choreographed and have a visceral feel to them. Visceral! Crack open a dictionary right now. Not just because of the generous amount of blood, but their intensity too. Afro may be one of the best samurai around, but he can't just use brute force all of the time. It's not realistic per se, but I feel like I'm watching people actually fighting, and not just waving their swords around. I got a mental image of guys waving their swords around. Hey! I was trying to be nice! Getting me demonetized.
Oh no, I have been demonetized.
Not that I make any money. I'm not someone who likes to listen to dubs, or just in general, languages other than Japanese in my anime. For obvious reasons.
Don't be afraid, I just want to be friends with you.
But aside from the fact that I'm kind of forced into watching one since there is no Japanese version, I thought the actors did a pretty good job. It goes without saying that Jackson was great. As Afro, he's a stoic, silent protagonist, and his actions do most of the talking.
Nothing personal. It's just revenge.
Hey, at least we get to know why he's like this, unlike a certain someone. It's disappointing that Jackson doesn't get a whole lot of dialogue as Afro, but he makes up for it with the second role, Ninja. Ninja is the comic relief and is usually the one commentating on the sidelines. He might get annoying if you're not a fan of this type of character, but I like him because, well, it's Sam Jackson. He's loud, upbeat, perverted, basically a complete 180 of Afro, with most of their conversations being a variation of,
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
But the interesting thing about him is the question of whether or not Ninja really exists. He seems to have an influence with the real world, and characters do notice him, but he's also a personification of everything Afro has lost. Humor, happiness, emotions, desires.
Mama sons don't get much better than old girl.
Everything that doesn't relate to revenge. And eventually he too is killed, with only the samurai part of Afro remains. The rest of the voice cast is a bit cheesy and over the top, but that works in the show's favor. You'll recognize a few of the actors here. Here's a quick little slideshow of them and their roles. But the most notable one is Phil Lamar. I'm mentioning him because many of you know him as Samurai Jack or Static Shock, or his co-starring role in Pulp Fiction.
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
In terms of the score, the immediate comparison would be to Samurai Champloo, and like that series, the music works with the show rather than being a distraction. Looking at you, Baz Luhrmann. If you go by RZA's words on this, the music tells the story of how soul music is killed by rock, which in turn gives way to hip-hop, a combination of both.
And hip-hop kills rock.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Yeah, I didn't know that going in if you couldn't tell. Remember, most of the time I only think, the beeps and the boops are very pleasing. But the key thing here is that it works. If you're a fan of hip-hop or enjoyed RZA's works in films like Kill Bill, you'll definitely get a kick out of this. That theme song is pretty catchy too. Bad stuff, boo, get off the stage. You might have noticed that for the positives, I didn't talk a whole lot about the themes or characters of this story. That doesn't mean the show is heartless, but Afro Samurai puts most of its focus on the action and the aesthetics. While those aspects pass the mark, the rest is more of a mixed bag. The show is short, only about 2 hours for the uncut version. That makes it fast-paced and keeps your attention. And considering the story isn't too deep, that's good. But it's also too short. For example, the futuristic/feudalistic world is interesting, but we don't get to see much of it outside of things like cell phones, robots, and
Motherfucking RPG!
The world is explored a bit more in the follow-up, but it's a shame there's not more of it here. The supporting characters are also severely impacted by the show's length. They serve their purpose in moving the story forward, yes, but we don't get as much time to develop them as they should have gotten. While Afro might not be the most complex character out there, we at least understand his goal and how he got to be like that. Everyone else? Not so much. Take Okiku for example. She grew up with Afro but now works with the MT7 to kill him, by stealing his memories and dreams to make an Afro robot. Remember, it's the future. Maybe. But she begins to develop feelings for Afro and is torn on what to do. This could make for a good character arc, but she's only given a single episode to do this. And it's as simple as follows. She rescues Afro, gives him food, steals his memories/dreams, has sex with him,
You know I watched that shit, bruh.
decides to help him, and then is killed as a result. Justice only appears at the beginning of episode 1 and the climax of episode 5. Ron Perlman has a lot of fun as this over-the-top villain, but he doesn't have much of a presence overall. Outside of driving Afro to become a samurai, he doesn't do much else. The reason for his absence is explained in the manga and the video game, but I would have liked to see how he had intended to be a god in this world. The MT7 are in a similar boat. They have a larger presence than Justice, an actual goal, and each member has some interesting characteristics. Particularly Brother 3. He's just vibing most of the time. He doesn't even try to fight Afro, he just offers him some tea and rice crackers and politely asks.
Hachamaki o kudasai.
And for that, he lets him live. The other brothers aren't as lucky. But they have the same problem of having only one episode to give them the spotlight. The only one here with real development is Jinnosuke. He's hunting down Afro because Afro's obsession with revenge led to the death of their mentor and every other student in the dojo. We understand his motivations and sympathize with him, and seeing him and Afro growing up and becoming friends makes this all the more tragic. But this leads us into the final problem of the series, how it handles the idea of the cycle of revenge. The core message of the show is that making your life's goal revenge destroys you and will only inspire more violence. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad message to tell viewers, but a lot of the people who would watch this show would do it because of the action. For a series whose main draw was to see Samuel L. Jackson as a samurai, it feels a bit strange to say the least. It's not as if the theme comes out of nowhere, because it is brought up several times, but a few more episodes really would have let it have the impact it should have had.
Man, all these killings are really starting to depress me.
So what do I think of Afro Samurai? For me, it's another case of a series having a lot of promise, but not quite hitting the mark in the end. The highs that the show delivers are great, but the many things it lacks will pull you back down. But at the same time, Afro Samurai isn't a series that's trying to change the world. It's trying to give us a fun ride, and if you judge it by that, then it succeeds. It's by no means perfect, but if you enjoyed shows like Samurai Champloo or movies like Ninja Scroll, then you might want to put Afro Samurai on your radar. The sequel film is also worth watching and even addresses a few of the problems I had here. It even won an Emmy Award, which is pretty impressive to say the least. Afro Samurai is a unique show and one that should have inspired more shows to follow its example. By blending together so many unexpected things, it stands out from a lot of what's out there. So Japan, please put down the isekai or whatever run-of-the-mill show you're planning on making next, and please make more series like this. And maybe get Samuel L. Jackson too. That wouldn't hurt.
Does Samuel L. Jackson really like anime? Yeah.
See you all next time.